Hey everybody, this is Jackie from the Australian Incupod. You are tuning into the second part of our two-part interview with Mathew from Manuko. Part 2 of this interview, Mathew highlights the difficulties he's faced with creating products himself, the processes he went through to get his initial customers, and how perceptions of organic foods have changed over time. So Mathew, were there any major challenges you faced starting Manuko? Because the food industry in Australia is highly regulated.
Many challenges, many different challenges. I think one of the biggest challenges starting out was the manufacturing of the products. Where do you make them? How do you make them sustainably? I started out, in a spare bedroom with an agreement to rent a friend's commercial kitchen, and very quickly outgrew that. Realized it takes a lot more time to make them. It's very heavily regulated as well, which is a good thing, really. Keeping it safe for the public, obviously. The manufacturing was an ongoing challenge for sure. I moved from my home temporarily into a commercial kitchen, renting that in Melbourne for a couple of months. And renting commercial kitchens are pretty expensive and it's not that sustainable. And also it was a hell of a lot of work back then making the products. So I happened to come across through that a connection that introduced me to a contract manufacturer, and they ended up making my entire product range for a couple of years. Which is kind of like amazing, but it's also like I then got removed from the production of the products. And so I felt like I really needed to be there to keep optimizing the process, keep making sure the quality is really high standard, because that's, what the whole business is on, is using high quality organic ingredients. It's not about just cutting costs and using cheap ingredients, which they weren't doing, but just to really think, it's not about having a cheap ingredient. What's the best ingredient possible? I spend like a couple of $1,000s a litre on one of my essential oils because it's just amazing, and not many people use that kind of thing. They called me up at the beginning of 2016, I think, and they said, Matt, we've got some good news and some bad news. The good news is we can get your product out this week, your order out this week. I was like, okay, that's normal. The bad news is that we're closing down our manufacturing arm.
Oh no.
And they gave me a few months' notice. But when I got the call, I was actually excited, even though it was like pretty daunting, that whole the process of potentially taking on the manufacturing again. I was really excited because I felt like this is what I need. This is what the business needs, is to bring that in-house, so have complete control over the creation of the products, and also have the capacity to create whatever we want, and there's no real constraints around that. So it took me roughly 6 months to find a place. They finished up with me after 3 months, and then I had 3 months of just renting different places to make the products in while I found my own factory. I also contacted a few other contract manufacturers, and I just realized that path just wasn't for me. They often make these kind of standard products, and I wanted to make something that's, really handcrafted, different. And so, I just realized it was the best kind of path for me.
So how long were you making the product for by yourself, like in your commercial kitchen?
Yeah, so roughly like 1 or 2 years. Can't even remember. And the beginning was really challenging. Like my product was little superfood balls, all packed into a pack, about 7 balls per pack. And you'd blend up this big mix, and then you'd pinch together, because it was kind of crumbly mix. You had to pinch together the balls, then roll them each individually, these tiny little balls, and then pack them into these packs, label each pack. It was the most labor-intensive process ever, and wasn't very sustainable. I could maybe make 200 products a week, max, full time. It was crazy. But through that, I learned a lot. And they got to a point where I just had a couple of distributors, I think, by that stage. Maybe it was one year later. I can't remember exactly. I think it was like a year. I was doing that for roughly about a year. And then I had, I think, 1 or 2 distributors at that stage. And I started to get all these, a lot more orders. I was so pushed. And then I saw, I remember this one day in the commercial kitchen, and I saw this whole mix in front of me. I was like, I can't roll another ball. I just can't do it. Screw being perfect. I can't do that. And so that's when I changed it to change the kind of process into making them into cubes. It was more innovative, way easier to produce. Customers preferred it. And, it's I don't think customers really care how hard it is for you to make a product. I think it's more, they just care if they love it and if it's amazing, So that was a huge learning curve for me. Yeah.
Yep.
It's got to be sustainable to make it.
So before you release a new product or when you're kind of prototyping,
Yep.
What are the kind of processes you have to go through?
The process I have at the moment is I have to know that it's going to be a great product and that people want it. And so I go to a farmer's market every Saturday, and that's where I'll test out new creations. And I get all this feedback from customers. Keep getting feedback. Keep asking for critical, honest feedback. And the feedback is often, will they buy it? Will they buy it again? You know, because people won't necessarily tell you the hard truth to your face. But I also have what I call like this informal advisory board, which is kind of close family and friends, basically. And that's where I'll seek a lot of feedback, and they're willing to be honest with me and tell me the truth. And I know when I've really landed on something great, I know it from their response. So yeah, I've just been developing a new product at the moment, which I'll be launching in early next year. And I've gone through that process, and it's been great. It's been a really good learning curve. And I feel like I've really now landed on the right concept, the right product. People are loving it at the market, and I know I can produce it sustainably.
So when you first started and you made like those initial 200 units, how did you sell them? So you mentioned distributors. Were you able to meet distributors straight away and sell them, or did you have to kind of go like knocking on doors? Because
100% knocking on doors. Yeah. So just rocking up basically to different health food stores in Melbourne. So I developed a kind of a prototype or initial product, which are these raw organic superfood snack pack, actually called it that time. So 7 little mini balls of deliciousness in a pack. And I'd go to different health food stores, knock on the door and just say, meet the owner, and just say, hey, you know, this is my product range. Have a taste. Here's some samples. This is the prices. You know, this is the shipping method. What do you think? And I had a lot of success initially getting into these stores. And then from that, I had a distributor contact me who started seeing it around the place.
Yeah.
And then developed a relationship with them, and then another distributor. And then I started to run into all this learning, I guess, all these challenges with the product, like the packaging, you know, learning about what's good product packaging on store shelves. The packaging I designed the labels myself, so it wasn't the best. And yeah, I went through all this learning around that as well.
Do you find it difficult promoting, something that has traditionally been seen as unhealthy? Chocolates, sweets.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, some people. So I'll say to people, it's all organic ingredients. It's all gluten-free. It's all dairy-free. There's no refined sugar. It's vegan. It's just full of organic nuts, cacao. It's guilt-free. And people are like, oh, yeah, yeah, right. Nothing's guilt-free kind of thing, this kind of attitude. It's like, I'm really passionate about the idea of like a win-win philosophy, that you can have something that's delicious and it's good for you too. And I want my products to be proof of that. I went to uni and it was all about trade-offs and win-lose situations. And I was like, this sucks. I think the future is really about win-win in all different areas of life. And for me, food's a great example. So yeah, it can be hard, but it can be hard, like kind of communicating that. But it's really about the art of communicating it and saying, these are the ingredients that are used in the products, talking to people about it, educating people. And a lot of people these days are more and more educated about it, more and more into the health conscious way of life. So.
Do you find that, say, young people, understand, what gluten-free and, organic kind of means compared to older generations? Or is that a bit of a misstereotype?
Maybe generally, yeah, but not always. Like, I'd say probably generally speaking, my customers are younger, but not necessarily. Some people who are older are just much more into it. Maybe they've gone through a huge transition in their life and they have to eat more healthily, or it's not necessarily age dependent. My customers range from very young to much older, like 60s, 70s. So yeah, it's like the whole spectrum. It's really generally people who are leaning towards health conscious. They don't want to have all the sugar and all the unhealthy kind of ingredients, but they still want to have like a delicious experience, not compromise on that.
Yeah, so on your website, I saw that you listed your producers and like showed who they were. We're beginning to see like a shift where consumers kind of want to know the origins of where their food comes from. Why do you think that's so important?
I think it's so important, and it's also, there's so many inspiring stories behind the food that we eat, like it's making what's invisible normally visible. So I think if you went into like KFC, for example, or some kind of fast food joint, and they were really transparent about where all their food was produced, how it was produced, people probably wouldn't want to eat there, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and for me, it's also like having grown up on a farm and seeing all this amazing work that my mum and dad would do, but people don't know about it and don't know all the stories of the farmers and the growers who are doing this incredible work. So I see like as a business and a brand developing these products as an opportunity to share these stories. It's just like sharing the stories, creating this transparency so people feel this connection with where their food comes from and the impact, because people are having an impact with every purchase they make, and to really kind of communicate the impact they're having, the agriculture they're supporting, the people they're supporting, kind of world they're supporting.
So do you have like an ongoing relationship with your producers? Have you like heard about what they feel like about this? Like, do they feel empowered almost?
I hope in the future. At the moment, there's very few that I can buy from directly, just because in order to buy, like you have to buy maybe a minimum 1 ton per ingredient.
Yeah, massive.
Minimum. But through like distributors and things, I get in touch with the growers themselves. Like almond growers in Victoria, peanut grower, the only organic peanut grower in Australia in Queensland. And so I hope, it has an impact on what they're doing. And yeah.
Is it hard to keep costs down, considering that, you definitely do emphasize, okay, we want to make sure we're getting the best ingredients.
Yep.
But obviously you can't, charge absurd prices. How do you kind of strike that balance?
I think that's the challenge with any business. How do you strike the balance? How do you land on a good business model? And that's the kind of the challenge. That's the whole thing. Like, I want to create great products and I want to use the best ingredients, and it's also got to be affordable for people. It's not, if you have the best ingredients and it costs $1,000 to buy a slice, people probably aren't going to buy it. Maybe they will. That could be a new future product. But it's just striking that balance. Finding the right ingredients, but without compromising on the quality, and it's just really doable. It's really doable, particularly when you're buying like in larger quantities. The cost goes down, and but it's a premium product, premium ingredients, and just I have that standard for myself that it has to be. The ingredients have to be great. They have to be certified organic, because that's what the brand stands for. And and just making sure there's enough profit there to sustain the business, creating new products and getting them out there and stuff like that.
So just going back to communicating that message. So I noticed on your website you have a link to your Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's a very pretty Instagram.
Thank you.
How would you describe the impact social media has had on the food industry?
Yeah, social media is amazing, I think. It's such a great way to communicate directly with your customers. It's a great way to get a message out there freely to many people. So I think it's fantastic. And I don't know exactly what the impact's been on the food industry, but I think the impact on every industry has been big. And with whatever business you're creating, social media is amazing just to reach people, to tell people about what you're doing. And you're reaching people all over the world. You find your people. They don't have to be in your village. They can be anywhere. So social media has been great. It's a great way to get a message out there. It's really, really awesome.
Is that something you kind of manage yourself, the social media aspect?
Yeah.
Somebody that helps you out with that?
Yeah, I manage it a lot myself. I really enjoy the creative aspect of that, and also creating that link between what we're doing and the customers or the general population. But I currently have a few interns working with me, and one of them's helping me with the sales and marketing side. So yeah, she's coming up with all these different ideas and different kinds of posts and ways to communicate. So that's awesome. Yeah, getting input from others.
Just the final question. What is one thing you would tell young people considering a jump from their early corporate professional careers to founding their own startup?
It's a great question. I get asked that quite a bit. I'd say, what's a tip, piece of advice? Say like really be true to yourself. So, I mean, like if it's in your nature to be entrepreneurial, for some people it's just not in their nature. Like you've got to do something, I think, that's true to your nature. Some people are accountants and they're amazing accountants, and that's awesome. But some people are more entrepreneurial or more creative. And I think just acknowledge who you are, or to go out and find out who you are if you don't know, and be true to that. Do something you're passionate about. Like, do something you're extremely passionate about and you feel, I think, that's going to make some kind of difference, or it's going to be inspiring, it's going to excite you, because business can be really challenging. You know, I talk to a lot of different business owners, and they're going through massive challenges. And to get you through those ups and downs, I think, for me at least, it's about having something I really believe in. I feel like I'm creating something extraordinary for people, and people can do extraordinary things for people in so many different ways. Like, maybe it's through music, maybe it's through, you know, having an amazing podcast, maybe it's through art, clothing, whatever it is, you know, like creating something extraordinary for people will get you through anything. I think like Viktor Frankl says something like, when you have a why, you can bear almost anyhow. Something along those lines, you know? So when you got something to carry you through, it makes it all worthwhile. It feels rewarding. It feels like you're doing good work. You're getting something out there in the world, and you're creating something in the world. Like, it's pretty cool. You can invent your own life. If you can't find a job that you feel is for you in the world, if there's no job out there, you just invent it. You know, we can do that. Like, just create it.
I think that's a great note to kind of end on. Thanks for coming in, Matt.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Mathew.
Yeah, thanks so much.
That concludes our interview with Mathew. You can find Manuko at manuko.com.au. For more information on the Australian Incupod, visit us at australianincupod.com. Make sure to leave us a review and follow us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and our website to stay up to date with our latest episodes.